So before we get started actually building things, we want to make a project plan that allows us to have something that we can refer back to as we develop, because this is no small task. So I'm using a free online tool here called draw.io, and it's effectively a flow diagramming tool. And it's also what I use for nearly all of my project plans. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a blank rectangle, and we're going to make a project overview. Going to put the title into the top left corner, and I'm just going to lay out the main sections of the program that we're going to have, and then we'll expand each of them so that we can see the detail and effectively make a rough outline of our Touchdesigner network. So the first thing I'm going to make is, it's going to be the main project is our main tier, so everything, and the main project is going to feed into our Projector Calibrator. We're then going to have some sort of virtual projector controller, something that allows us to move these projectors in a virtual space. Then we're going to need some sort of pixel mapping toolkit, so something that allows us to position our projectors so that we can capture an image from our virtual dome, something that allows us to then manipulate those pixels so that we can alter the projected image. And then that is going to lead to the projector warper. And then the thing I love about these is you can connect them all with arrows. So something like that is probably the simple overview of all the elements we're going to have inside of our program from a top-down hierarchy. So the main project is essentially going to be a projector calibrator that has control over a bunch of virtual projectors inside our world. We're then going to attach a pixel mapping tool to each of those virtual projectors that then give us the warped projected image that we output into the real world. So that's generally how I envision the Touchdesigner flow for this project will go. But I want to bring out each of these sections and just envision them a little bit more on how we're going to build the network. So I'm going to copy and paste my main project container. I'm going to call this main project. The honest answer is I've done a dry run of this program before. It's the only way that I could work out how to condense all of it into a tutorial series. So I kind of know the flow that we want to have through trial and error. And the first thing we're going to need is to create a full dome model. This entire course is about mapping 180-degree full domes using Touchdesigner alone. So the first thing we're going to do is create a version of our full dome inside Touchdesigner. And that full dome will pass into a virtual 3D world. So we'll take our full dome model, so we'll make it out of SOPs, and we'll turn it into a geometry. And to that geometry, we are going to apply a calibration image. Something I'll provide in the first lesson's assets, but I'll give you a range of 180-degree full dome images that we're going to use to apply to our now virtual full dome. So effectively we have the same angles, we have the same rotation, and we'll have the same size as your real dome, but we'll now have it in a virtual setting with an accurate calibration image attached. To that, we're going to do some fancy camera trickery. So we're going to build a bunch of cameras that act as projectors that are going to mimic exactly what our projectors in the real world do. So I'm going to have my cameras and my lights as projectors in the same space. And these are going to take from the virtual asset. So if I do style and give it a nice dotted line. So this isn't a physical connection. This is just, we have a camera in our scene that is capturing our virtual dome with its calibration image. And then we have a light that acts as the projector that's going to cast back on to another 3D model. And this is going to be our projection mapping output. It's going to be something that allows us to virtualize or see a version of what we're trying to do so that we can accurately understand what projectors are and aren't casting. So these lights are going to reflect back onto another version of our dome that has a blank image, blank texture, onto this one, and this comes down here, and these are both solid lines. So these are physical links. So I've taken my full dome model and I've created another version of it in 3D. But this time, instead of taking our calibration image that's seen by cameras, it's actually taking light from something that is effectively being a projector. And this lets us see whether our projectors are casting what we see in the real world as close as we can get it. For when we just aren't able to get this reflection perfect though, we're going to introduce Projector Calibrators. So this is a combination of, this is where our cameras and lights will actually be stored. And the idea is that there's one of these. So if we take out this and introduce this instead. So our cameras and lights are inside here. And there's going to be one of these for each of our projectors in the real world. And these are going to be what outputs to our actual projectors. So there we go. So I have a full dome model of our real dome in a virtual setting that then has an accurate calibration image projected onto it. I have projector calibrators that allow me to position, rotate, and set the field of view of my projectors in to capture this virtual setting. And inside here is also going to be the part where we map the pixels. And whatever the output of these projector calibrators is what's actually sent to each of the projectors. To help us understand what our projector warping is doing, we're going to make a second virtual version of our dome that we're going to cast lights back onto, so that we have one version that is being captured to warp with, and one version that is being projected onto to show us the calibrated dome. Inside our scene, we're also going to have a bunch of preview cameras that allow us to see a digital version of what we should be seeing in the real world as well, and that'll come from our dome over here. Okay, and that is a real overview of what our main project is going to look like inside Touchdesigner.